I want to move along now to our countywide representative, the judge, and Ms. Benavides. This has to do with job openings, and it has to do with individuals who are perhaps living in poverty, unemployed. And I'd like to know, what can we do to connect those individuals that are living in poverty, unemployed, with thousands of jobs that are open in Hidalgo and Starr counties? Because there's some disconnects. I know you have been doing a lot of work with your prosperity task force to connect those disconnects, but what is being done, what can be done, what can we do, what can we do here collectively in this room to get those individuals into good paying jobs that are available?
Well, thank you for asking the question. That's exactly what we're trying to do, the Prosperity Task Force. What we did is we wanted to divide the tasks because the tasks are very onerous, and you can't put them on just one group of people to do them. I think you have to break it down in pieces because it's a very complicated thing. But we can't help somebody who don't know who you are. So the first thing that we want to do is how do we identify people, and that's a growing, living document that continues to grow. People come in, people go out. Number two, what type of training and who's going to be the training to move them out of an underemployment or no employment to something else. Then what we've had and seen is we've done actually a fairly good job in creating human capital, but a lot of that human capital left because the jobs were not here. So if we create human capital and the jobs were not here, then we're not going to keep that human capital. Two bad things happen. We don't benefit from the human capital, we're going to have to compete with it because it's somewhere else. So really the key to our success is going to be how good we are in economic development. How good are we to attract investment to our area? So in order for us to do that, we can't be good at everything. I think that's a true statement. We cannot be good at everything. We cannot compete with everyone. We cannot compete globally with everything. But what can we compete? What's our niche? What can we do better than anybody else? How do we gain that competitive edge? That doesn't come from a subjective analysis. That comes from an objective analysis for us to find out what are we best suited, what can we do to provide a competitive edge over somebody. Because right now, to give you an example, what we're lacking in is we have, I understand, maybe 6,000 jobs out there. At least that number was given to me. We got 6,000 jobs, and we got 10,000 people looking for jobs. Well, wait a minute. There's a disconnect. We've got 6,000 jobs, we've got 10,000 people. What's the disconnect? Well, who's responsible to match those two? Who's responsible to find out why aren't those people taking the jobs that exist already? What's the reason for that? If we don't know the answer to that, how can we fix the problem? And if those skills that these jobs are required, these people don't have it, well, isn't that a clue for all of you that's training people? Let's start with what we have now, what we can do now. Because we sometimes complicate things because we look at our goals differently. We have a today goal, an immediate goal, we have a midterm goal, we have a long-term goal. Believe me, each one of those goals is different. You can't have just one goal because a long-term goal is very different than the goal today. Right now, if we can't fill the jobs, the 6,000 jobs here today, and we're going to be recruiting companies to come in and work, where are we going to get the workers? So you see what I'm saying? So what I have seen in my experience is that we do a very good job at defining the problem, and sometimes we even do a fairly good job finding the solution to the problem, but we haven't done a good job as who executes the problem. Okay? And I hope that this is what we're going to gather from this type of a session here, is to form that structure that can really implement whatever plan that we all decide to work together as a region. And I think that's going to happen. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that what we're trying to do is find out what is the cause of the problem. Why can we match this 10,000 people underemployed looking for a job with the 6,000 jobs that are here already?
So Judge, we have a room full of people of various different industries and sectors. We got business people, organizations, community-based organizations, educators, etc. What would you say to them? What can they do? What can we all do here as perhaps one or two steps to start helping combat that issue?
Well, first of all, you have to fix responsibility. In management, if you know what you want to do, but you don't fix responsibility to someone, most of the time it's not going to get done. And that's the problem that we have when we're a county of 22 cities. It's a blessing, but also a curse, because how do we bring so many people together? And that's the benefit of this organization here, is we have to fix responsibility into that. And the Workforce Commission, we had a meeting this week, and my chairman is right here next to me here. And I said, you know, we need certain things to be done. Okay, if you volunteer to do them, we're going to have to find somebody else to do it. But we have to find someone to do what needs to be done.
Okay, Madam Chair, same question. We have job openings, we have unemployed individuals. How do we connect?
So it's interesting that we're having, or that you're asking that question, because we literally just had this conversation the day before yesterday about, you know, what do we do with all this data that we're collecting? You know, how do we find a way to leverage the resources that are limited always, the human capital that is limited always, and then how do we find a way to ensure that there is that connection? And so, you know, you sit in these rooms and we talk about Apply Texas, we talk about Work in Texas, we talk about all of these platforms that already exist, but nobody's seeing each other's information. You know, so if you're talking about someone looking for jobs, typically a person that visits Workforce Solutions is only a person that has lost their job, for the most part. You know, because they know this is what they call the unemployment office, right? And so they're looking for that resource. The truth of the matter is that there is so much more that office can do, connecting with people with training, connecting with people with increasing the skills to get better paying jobs. And we're not taking advantage of the fact that the state and the federal government is spending loads of money collecting data and information, and that it's there if someone was just able to take it and piece it together. You know, if I'm going in there and I'm registering for college and I'm graduating for college and somebody has access to the fact that I got a degree in business, then somehow everyone that is looking for someone with a degree in business should be able to access that information and make it easier, because the biggest problem we have in all this conversation has always been that the employer side of this is what is always a vacuum. You know, we don't have them participating in this conversation as much as they should. You know, we have employers in this room, and they will tell you that if you ask them, hey, have you ever visited Workforce Solutions and their business services office? You know, their job is to find you employees, right? And so we need to find a way to go beyond collecting the data and matching it with the people that need it. And all of these databases that exist for the purpose of that entity, and then they have zero, I'm not gonna say they have zero desire, or that they have zero opportunity to do it. What we don't have is an active effort to say, talk to each other, find a way to share that information, so that if I'm looking for employees, I know where to look. And if I'm looking for a job, I know where to look. And there's tons of people like Indeed, like Monster, all of these people that their job exclusively is to collect people's resume information for you to go in there and search for your employees. But at the state and public level, we're not doing that. So I would say that there is a way to do it if we found a way to get everyone to share that information and get that done. Now, is that gonna solve our problem of finding a way to move people out of poverty? It's debatable, but it sure as hell will give them a chance.
That's right.
If we don't try, we'll never do it.
No, that's right. And for the commissioners here, I did want to mention something real quick. And I have to be honest, there are some times when we get some skills for small business, it could be other grants that we get from Workforce Commission, SSFs, self-sufficiency funds, that is. It's really hard to get people to train, even though it's at no cost, even though they're unemployed, even though they have nothing to lose but come to the training and take classes. It's still very difficult to get them. That's one level. Second level, it's hard to get them employed, those that do finish. So that's why I think we need to continue to have more of these discussions along with our business partners, because those are some gaps that we're seeing, Commissioner, and it's nobody's fault. It's integrated in an ecosystem, I guess, or a system of sorts. But those are little gaps that we need to really start punching at, because we see it at the college. Free tuition, wonderful programs, MSSC, Manufacturing Skills Council, Certified Production Technician, for example, can't get anybody in it. And you're getting a credential at no cost to be able to work at a good wage in this industry, yet it's hard to get individuals in there. I mean, there's, Judge, you're about to say something.
I just wanted to point out to the two commissioners, this is why I think it's important that some of the funds that are allocated to the workforce are discretionary, so they can put resources to remove this obstacle that's keeping us from doing the job.
I will have a little caveat, before I get crucified when I walk out of this stage. It is not the problem of the organizations and the entities, by no means. They're doing what their task and what their mission is to do. And that is to find the information and compile it in a way where if someone is looking for it, they will find it. We just need to be finding a better way to ensure that everyone has access and the desire to look it up to solve these problems.
Make it more accessible,
Yeah.
a little more user-friendly perhaps. Okay, good topics. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, and we've recognized exactly what the judge and Rose has just been stating, and actually we've just added to our team a workforce development specialist that really will take what the companies are telling us and what the workforce development programs are out there. And his job is really to put those two together and to help us really become more effective in addressing that issue. So, and he's doing a great job. I mean, he's doing a lot of things that I never even thought of, but a lot of it has to do is what the judge says. I mean, you got your job, primary job to do, and then these other things which we all talk about, say, well, when I get to it. Well, there's not a lot of get-to-its out there. And so we really decided we were going to bite the bullet, and we were going to bring that person on, and he has hit the ground running and is doing a tremendous job. And he works with the college, he works with universities, he works with the Texas Workforce Commission, he works with the companies, and is bringing all that together to synthesize it so that hopefully we will be able to help create a model or to develop that.
Carlos, one thing real quick on what the judge is talking about, which one of the reasons this is so important is because poverty is stubborn. Poverty doesn't change, right? I mean, look at the LBJ started the Great Society to attack poverty in the 60s. And we're still dealing with it here today and the same challenges that the judge is talking about, Rose is talking about. There's a reason San Antonio is one of the poorest big cities in the country, because some of their zip codes on the west side have 50% high school graduation rates, low educational attainment. We look up to San Antonio, but we're hardly unique in this area. And San Antonio also Houston faces a huge problem in that area too. So we're all kind of battling this together, but taking it a step at a time like we're doing this here. And I'm so glad that Commissioner Trevino, Joe, glad y'all are here to listen to some of this. But we're really all facing this, and it's really important that everyone knows what is happening in this county.
Thank you. Okay, supply and demand comes into play a lot, what we do with the economic development organizations, counties, and what programs we have to offer, and what kind of living wages, or actually what is a living wage, right, Keith? But at the end, our job is, at the college, is to provide people a career with a good paying job. I mean, that's essentially it, to train them, to educate them. Keith, I'm gonna start with you, and I would just open it up to anybody who'd like to answer. You don't have to go one by one, but Keith, originally, this is maybe perhaps before your time, this area was always promoted as a low-wage area to try to recruit business and industry to this, and lower cost of payroll, et cetera. But at the same time, on the flip side, what does that do to our educated workforce? So I know there's a dynamic there that has been investigated and discussed many times. Where are we with that? Are we still a low wage area, or are we being promoted as a high skilled, higher paying area?
I think we try to be somewhere in between, because a lot of this, the companies that come in or the companies that we deal with, the ones that are already here, have skill sets that they need. And there's a value to those skills, and there's a value to a job. When you start getting above what that job value is, then you start running companies away because you're too expensive. And that is really set by what the supply and demand is of those particular jobs. I think the real challenge that we have, and quite frankly, in the past, we were represented as a low-cost area because we were a low-cost area. And the reason, quite frankly, was because we had too big of a supply of lower-skilled people to fill lower-skilled jobs. And so what we really have to focus on, but by the same token, if we look at higher-skilled jobs, a lot of times we're actually above the state average in those jobs because there's such a demand, and the supply is so low that we'll pay up higher here than what other places in the state are. So it's a supply-demand situation that we're dealing with. I think one of the challenges that we have now that we really need to look at, it's not a matter of creating jobs just so people have a job. It's now, what do we do to increase the quality of the job, the salary or of the job, and how do we create that chain to allow for entry level and then to continue to grow. I will tell you the Texas Workforce Commission, working with community colleges and universities, is doing a great job of that. They're really integrated together until we're really looking at, along with the Higher Education Coordinating Board now, with what we heard this morning, of being able to synthesize that so that we now give the employee a roadmap to see how they can grow as far and as high as they want to without having roadblocks or they have to back up and take another road. So I think that's important. I think, quite frankly, and I'm going to be a little bit tough on all of us, quite frankly, what we got to be focusing on is what are the jobs that we want to bring in that we can handle, as a judge says, what is our capability? Because quite frankly, there's a lot of jobs that if we brought the company in, we couldn't handle. But if we want those jobs, then we need to start training now, and we need to identify, all of us together need to identify, we want to bring this type of company in. And we work together to try to identify those companies that fit that. We also got to make sure that our infrastructure is in place. Do we have the electrical requirement? Do we have the water requirement? Do we have all of the things that that company is going to need or that sector is going to need? And so that's where I think I agree with the judge. This is one that we have to deal with data. We can't just wait for someone to walk in the door and say, we're here, which is oftentimes what happens. But we really have to look at doing that, continuing to handle that. We also need to establish a target list of companies that we're all in agreement with, and then we need to start identifying how we can get prepared for that company. The company I mentioned earlier, the 200 meg. It just so happens we have a site that has 200 megawatts available power. We were one of 5 in the state. So that limits the hunters' options real quick. And those are the type of things I think we could look at and address. But I think that's what I'm seeing. But I think we have to start focusing on it. The commission and the mayor, that's what they want now. Our unemployment is at a level where, quite frankly, if we bring a new company in, we're just going to steal jobs from somebody else, and then they're going to have to replace from a lower scale, which really just causes a lot of issues, and so we don't want to do that.
Well, then,
We're actually seeing that right now, Keith. In the healthcare industry, obviously, that is one of those things that, you know, for nurses, for example, we're seeing a lot of nurses that are applying for Driscoll because their wage structure is a little bit higher than some of the existing hospitals. And so, yeah, there's some shift going on. Yes, we're training nurses every day, and they're graduating every quarter, every semester. But we're seeing that right now where some of that cannibalism is happening. We have to also start thinking about what workforce is. You know, we talk about infrastructure. In Edinburgh, we're spending $2 million on a water tower on the EDC side, not just the city side, for a better water pressure, being able to service the needs of the North Industrial Park. We're spending another $2 million on infrastructure to extend sanitary sewer into certain parts of the city. So that's, this year, that's $4 million. Our annual revenues are $9.5 million. So that's a large chunk of our annual revenues going towards that infrastructure. Workforce development, our budget is 6 figures. That's not enough. And so we have to think about workforce as one of those components that's infrastructure, where we do spend $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year to train our folks so that we can have that pool of labor necessary to attract those companies. So yeah, we have a gap. We have all those people that are looking for work. We should be focusing our budgets on those people a little bit harder.
anybody else? Go ahead.
Yeah, there was times when we would travel and recruit companies to our community, and when we were sitting at a table with, I participated in Team Texas a couple of times, and I know that has also. But what was fun about that is that we would go to a company in a city outside of our region or our state in some cases, and we would sit in a circle with other cities from around us, and quite frankly, the idea of a low cost of living, which drives your low wage, came up with us more often than it did when I'm sitting in the same room trying to promote West Dakota, the region of the valley, with Dallas and Denton and different places around the state, Houston and others. And so to drive that question home, we have used that before, because I think to a certain degree, it's a fact. It's not necessarily a strategy. I like the way the question was phrased. Is it a strategy? It's really more of a fact. And that fact sets us apart from other cities in the state, that if we're in the same line in terms of cost of living and cost of wages, then it's going to be, I wonder if it's going to be a little harder to recruit if we're the same as everybody else. The proximity, I think, to Mexico a lot of times might even give the mindset that our economy is maybe at a lower standard or lower rate, and so that perception is needing to change as well. But we have, in many cases, used the idea that we can recruit a company that's always going to look at their bottom line, no matter what kind of company, no matter what size. Their bottom line is what's most important. And when we can say that our wages and our cost of living is lower than Houston, Dallas, some of the other larger cities, I think it makes us more competitive. It may not be the right thing the right socioeconomic thing to say, but I think it's a reality that we've relied on a few times.
And just a quick comment on Judge Platt, the Prosperity Committee that he's created. I see a lot of things happening. Mario Reina always gets phone calls, emails. But one of the things I want to say, I don't keep mentioning about, having a specialist in this. I think all the EDUs have, when I have someone here, I need to do this. Karina Lopez, can you stand up? I think everybody knows her because she's all over. I think she attends meetings with Texas Workforce Solutions, Texas Workforce Solutions and Texas Workforce. The university colleges, all these organizations that we're involved with. We're talking about partnerships, RGB College, RGB League, and so RGB Focus. Those are parts. I see one of our partners here, Vida, Calida Villarreal. So we're doing that, Judge, already. We were supposed to announce have press conference, press release on the grant that we did with RGB College, Dr. Anabel Palomo. We met some time ago, I think, Julian Adams was there, and we were talking about that they were having trouble with their graduate students to do their clinicals. And that, you know, it's like those that were in the teaching, you know, when I was there, student teaching, you were out for a year, you had to stop working because you had to do student teaching. Now this nursing students from RGB College were having to, you know, leave their jobs because they needed to do clinicals during the day or whatever hours they were scheduled. So when I got called to that meeting, they told me it was, you know, we could do a matching grant, and we did. The RGC participated in a $150,000 grant. I think also RGB College got a grant with DHR. So we're kind of already addressing, Judge, some of your concerns, and as I hear, we have a high unemployment rate. And so this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to tackle that not only for the city of Park, but the region. And I've been with several investors, and I hear, oh no, Victor, it starts with education. It starts with education. That's when we start. I need educated people. We have a lot of unemployed people, and I hear about a gap. Well, I think that gap is probably the gap that, you know, when a company comes in, they still want some kind of certification, degree, and then so we gotta get there. We gotta get there. And so it's a tough job. I think we all mentioned here, Keith and Steve and Raleigh, that we're trying hard to get all this, but we're gonna have to continue working harder. And I see it coming. I think we're gonna get there hopefully as long as we continue the partnerships. I know Vida does a lot of those, you know, her students that she's got, they're all over high school, they're already parents and all that, and so that's why we donate to them. That's why we are partners with them, because I know the great job they're doing, and it's helping the job, you know, creation, is helping the unemployment. So again, I just want to share that with you also. Thank you.
I'm listening, and it's absolutely correct. You know, when you have to have a competitive advantage, cost of living and the wages are probably going to, you know, maybe not to the scale, but that definitely be considered. But I think that one of the things that we're all cognizant about is that we have long, as a community and as a group, been unapologetic of raising those wages. And that is happening, you know, and the core mission of our higher ed institutions and all of our partners is ensuring that we move people not just above poverty, but to a meaningful wage, not just a livable wage. And so I would only tell you that if we're going to be marketing ourselves as someone who has value, you know, companies at one point are going to have to decide whether that value is in the wage they pay or the kind of skilled potential employee that they're going to have.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Do we have time for questions, Dr. Petrosian, or? We have about 5 minutes for questions. Oh, by the way, Dr. Petrosian, I want to congratulate you on getting this entire group of economic development professionals. Yes, sir, Dr. Petrosian.
So there's a lot of scales, Bureau of Statistics, labor statistics, or the Labor Department, even MIT has living wages for every metro area in the country. The last time I checked, our living wage here in Hidalgo County was $14.50 an hour, right? And that's about $29,000. So employers in the private sector, they know their processes and bottom lines better than anybody. Sometimes when we're talking to them, they say, hey, well, look, I can only pay $11 an hour for my business model to work. Otherwise, I'm not going to locate in your city. So that's the reality of some of the conversations that we have when we're talking to employers. So, and it's our responsibility to try to push them a little bit without having to lose the project or insinuate that we know their business better than they do. But that is what the folks who measure this tell us. And so we try, at least on our end, I know some of my colleagues do the same thing, is we try to shoot for jobs, the primary jobs or otherwise, that pay more than that. There's other factors on why we recruit retail, because they provide a lot of sales taxes, and a lot of us operate off of those sales taxes. The jobs don't pay as well, but they're important in another way. But when we're recruiting those primary jobs, we do push for higher wages, but we have to also respect the private sector's business model that they have. And so There's a lot of negotiations and ways to look at this particular issue, but that's what we have to deal with when it confronts us.
And the free market too, right? I mean, it is what it is. I think, thanks, Detective, I think we have time for her. One half question. Okay.